Here's to the finest crew in Starfleet.
When it comes to my crew, you won't get any argument from me.
This is a parody. Paramount owns the song. Welcome to The Greatest Generation. It's a Star Trek podcast by a couple of guys just a little bit embarrassed about having a Star Trek podcast. I'm Adam Pranica.
I'm Ben Harrison.
I found myself on a production set yesterday.
Wow.
For the first time in a long time. It brought some feelings back.
Were you directing something? Well, tell me everything, Adam.
I was on a very unfamiliar side of that production, which was I was the talent. I was the talent wrangler, Ben. Ripley was scouted by enormous dog food company.
Wow.
They were looking for a Wheaton Terrier. That's the kind of dog Ripley is. And they wanted one of a specific size.
Did they want one of a specific temperament, which is...
which is insane.
Thunderstorm in a teapot?
They didn't mention temperament. But you know how there's like assistant Slack?
Mm-hmm.
There's like Wheaton Terrier Slack. There's like there's a network of Wheaton Terrier people that talk. And I'm not a part of this, but I heard from someone in it that they were looking, and so we sent a couple of pictures in, and those pictures were swiped right.
I never know which direction the good swipe is.
That's why I paused. I was like, I hope that means what I think it means. We had professional Hollywood animal wranglers and trainers come to our home and work with Ripley to get her to do this specific thing that they needed her to do. And like at home and at Spawn Ranch, basically, which is where we went a couple of days ago, we were deep out in those hills.
Yeah.
At like a wild animal training and sanctuary. Like they had lions and monkeys and crazy shit out there.
It was like the set of Nope, basically.
We went out there for a training session. Things were going great, and the shoot day was yesterday. So we went over to Culver City into one of the hundreds or thousands of box production spaces there, where it was set up for a still photo shoot with all the trimmings.
Wow.
And what I learned later, who was a very famous photographer, like a photographer of some renown, was in there. And it was Ripley and 10 other dogs. And all of the other dogs were not Wheatons. There was another Wheaton and 9 other different breeds. And we were run through an entire day of still photographs. And Ripley didn't get the part.
Oh, no!
It went to the other Wheaton.
Oh,
I'm pissed.
Oh! So she's not going to be like on bags of dog food or anything?
She will not. And they prepared me. They were like, look, there's a chance, we could kind of use Photoshop magic, put Ripley's head on another body or vice versa into some grotesque monstrosity that kind of resembles your dog but isn't. I'm glad we didn't go in that direction. Instead, it's just thumbs down. Didn't work out. And it didn't work out because she couldn't do the trick. She got some stage fright. And I get it. Like, if you've never been to a set of any kind before and you see like the 12 by 12 scrim and you see the 8 strobes all around and you see people you're not familiar with trying to get you to do a thing and their sounds and stuff, like, you might want to blame Ripley. I'm not blaming Ripley. It just wasn't her scene. It wasn't her scene, man.
Yeah. Yeah. We took my son to a pediatrician checkup the other day, and he is normally a very outgoing, like, talkative little baby. Mm-hmm. And just clammed up when the doctor was in there, and we were like, this sucks. Like, we want the doctor to like him and have like we want him to have a positive relationship with her. And he was like, he was totally just like, weird place, weird room. I don't know what's going on here.
When did you start to have a positive relationship with going to the doctor? Because Ben, like, it took me until I was a full-on adult, because every time my parents would bring me to a pediatrician, it was shot time.
Yeah.
I felt bad about it leading up to it and during every time.
It has been interesting to watch because, like, when they're really little, or at least when he was really little, the shots didn't seem to faze him at all. Like, you might get a little, from, and I really feel for these nurses because they just, like, spend all day, like, poking babies and making them cry. Like, so many of the people visiting a pediatrician are little babies because when they're really little, you have to go, like, when they're really, really little, you go once a week and then you stretch it out to once every other week and then once a month.
Yeah. I mean, when you go to a pediatrician, it's just little kids and then Benjamin R. Harrison until he's like 26.
True, but so far he has generally liked the adventure of going out there, and you've actually met up with me a couple of times when we went to the pediatrician because there's a good sushi restaurant downstairs from her office, and we've had lunch over there. Good burger place downstairs too.
Also that.
But I wouldn't blame Ripley at all. That is a high pressure environment, and I mean, a dog has even less context than a almost 2-year-old baby for something like that.
You know what I was really proud of her for was the in between 8 and 10 hours we spent at this place. She was absolutely cool. Like, there's nothing she likes more than a cold floor. Concrete floors abound.
Yeah.
Like, she was just chill and resting on a cold floor and just waiting. And I was waiting. And that was our day. For our 15 minutes of strobe clicks and a gentle turn down.
I hope you got some video of her being chill, because that's something I would very much like to see. I'm only ever over there for, like, short visits, so she doesn't, the, like, half-life of her excitement is like 3 hours. So usually I go visit and she does not stop flipping out the entire time I'm there.
I think that's an example of how long it's been since you've come over to socialize, because I think she has figured it out in a way where she needs to get that out of her system. Yeah. She needs to show you that she's happy that you're here, but then she'll go fuck off after, I want to say, like 15 minutes.
That's amazing.
She'll chill out.
That's a whole new Ripley. Well, I got to stop rudely turning you down when you invite me over.
I had portraits taken of both Ripley and me and Ripley by this very big photographer, and I'm excited to receive them and share them because I think they're pretty great.
Oh, man.
When do you get the chance? Like, that was basically the pay that I needed for my day. Like, that's a keepsake I'll treasure.
That rules.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on having a beautiful dog.
That isn't quite good enough in some specific ways.
It's just going to take practice, Like, being in the industry is about, like, learning to live with rejection as kind of a constant ambient thing in the background.
You know what? That's the gift, isn't it? She got her first one out of the way.
Yeah, she's already had an at-bat, and now everything after this is just gravy.
Love it. That's the way to look at it.
You might say she kicked in the front door of the entertainment business, Adam, as is done in the cold open of today's episode of Star Trek Enterprise. It's Season 1, Episode 7, The Andorian Incident.
All day long.
A director rep for Roxann Dawson.
Yeah.
Welcome back to Star Trek, Roxann Dawson.
Yeah, and she's still a working TV director. I've seen some shows on Apple TV Plus that she's directed. I think she does a really nice job.
If you were to make a list of the most quiet and boring places in the galaxy, how close to the top is Vulcan Monastery? This place seems like it would suck.
It's so funny because we've also seen, like, remote Klingon monastery, and that seems like a party. Like, those guys.
Well, those guys are getting high. I don't think these Vulcans are doing that at all.
No, their vibes are just tragically chill, tragically slow-paced and boring. And they get interrupted right at the top of this by some leather daddy Andorians who kick in the front door, waving the 4-4.
This is your Andorian incident. Into the credits. Ben, did you like that episode?
The performances were really compelling.
Yeah.
I missed a lot of our kind of main cast, It's like kind of
I did too.
It's one of those ones where it's like, hey, this isn't about them, and I guess that's going to have to be okay.
But I love seeing Jeffrey Combs back in Star Trek, so that was a big thrill for me.
No, you creep the hell out of me.
Instead, after the theme, we're back on Enterprise in the Ready Room, and Trip takes great umbrage with their use of Vulcan star charts to navigate the galaxy. He's like, is this exploration if we're going to places that others have been to before? That kind of makes sense.
I mean, that's like saying, like, if you have a Lonely Planet guide, did you really visit Lisbon or whatever?
Great counter argument.
I think Trip is being very silly in this scene. Like, he just wants to, like, stumble around and fall face first into trouble.
He really likes doing that open world video game thing where he just goes out as far as possible as a level 1 with a rock in your hand to see how far you could go.
Yeah. That is not what Archer is all about. And, he is making the argument, like, the Vulcans may have explored a lot of these places, but they haven't explored all of the places in between these places, and they don't know everything. There's stuff that we've found that they haven't yet.
Yeah.
And they haven't even been out that long.
That's the point that's made here. So T'Pol walks in, and Archer and Trip are like, hey, they point to the star chart. What about Pajem? Can we go to there? And T'Pol's like, I don't know, pretty boring. Not sure you'd like it. That's where we do Kulinar and probably some other things too. And that kind of makes it a place, like the way she describes it is so interesting, like explaining to a kid why they wouldn't like going to a museum that's kind of made for adults. Like, you're a little too young for Pajem.
Yeah. The Museum of Sex.
Yeah.
I'm not certain we'd be welcome.
It's because Vulcans think we smell bad, isn't it?
Yeah, but finally, like, I wouldn't say she's won over by them, but I think she just finally gives up.
Yeah, like it hasn't had humans there to stink the place up before argument kind of isn't persuasive to Archer. And so she's like, all right, I'm going to go like research the protocols that we need to like observe in making contact with these people. But, thinly veiled under her agreement is that she hates this fucking idea and thinks it's bad.
One part of the scene that I really liked is how I'm going to assume that everyone is very aware of how often they shoot T'Pol leaving a scene. Because Roxann Dawson's director credit occurs right over Jolene Blaylock leaving through the door. And I'm like, they know. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Why do we need to see this?
When you're watching the opening credits of a film and like there's a little flourish in the music when the music conductor credit is on screen or whatever. Where
John Woo places his director credit is always so intentional. I love it.
Totally. Phlox, unlike T'Pol, quite excited to be having another cultural experience. Just wants to eat it. He wants to let the juice of life run down his chin.
I really enjoyed watching the movie Challengers, but I was shocked that the churro scene was actually ripped off from this scene of Star Trek Enterprise. When Phlox grabs the celery and like holds it right between him and T'Pol, and they both take a bite out of it.
Yeah.
So tittillating.
It's like very horny, but not horny in the way you expected based on everybody saying how horny it was.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, really kind of held back. I really liked it. Yeah. I thought it was fun. As a tennisman, Ben, did you care for it?
I was in a profoundly bad mood when I saw that movie.
Uh-huh.
And I just felt like I saw everything coming a mile away. I was like conscious of what a cynical, shitty state of mind I was in, and I was like, this sucks. And I'm not giving this movie a fair shake, but fuck this movie and fuck everyone. It was kind of my headspace. So
this is kind of the mood that T'Pol is in this lunch. She's like, God damn it, I got to bring these fucking stinky ass humans to this place that's really special to me. They're not going to get it. They're going to touch everything and break stuff.
It could create a certain awkwardness.
I love that Phlox is the one to bring up the IDIC factor. And it's been something that I've been sort of wondering about this show. You know, early on, the Vulcans seem so uptight and so, you know, different kinds of people. Why even? And I love that word of IDIC has spread to Phlox's people, and he is calling T'Pol on her staring down her nose at everyone energy.
Well, the diversity and combinations also include humans and idiots, which is why Phlox calls it idiotic as the level they need to get on for a mission like this.
And T'Pol is like, yeah, like we appreciate diversity, but not equity or inclusion. We just like the diversity, like, but everybody stay separate.
Right. So we're in the mudroom after this, and Archer and Trip Tucker are just getting... They're getting the whole in the parking lot speech that a parent gives a little kid before going to, like, a family member's place. Like, Grandma's got a lot of nice things.
Right.
She keeps the plastic on the furniture for a reason. There are a lot of rules before the kids go to enter the museum with the breakable objects.
This is a crew that spent the last episode scrambling around in caves, and it's just like, hey, like, there's a lot of white carpet where we're going. Like, if you guys could make sure that you clean your boots and put on a fresh onesie for this one, it would be appreciated.
I also really like the trivia of Archer not needing to or being told not to hail before going down. You're just supposed to arrive.
Right. They don't even have flip phones down there.
Archer's like, who am I going to tell my life story to from jump? Who do I give my banking information to when I first meet them? It's very uncomfortable for him.
I tend to like to send a photograph of the front and back of my driver's license before I show up somewhere.
You got to get the back part, for sure. So at the temple, they find evidence of this door bashing that you referred to up top, and T'Pol rings the giant doorbell.
Oh, I love this doorbell.
And no one answers. So Archer just walks in. I love it. There's not even a glance exchanged between the Dustbuster Club. He just goes on in.
It's an interesting little reveal here because one of the big shots in the cold open, which is very short, is a shot of candles blowing out when the door gets kicked open. And the camera, when they enter the atrium of this monastery, pans past some candles that have been relit. And I thought that was such a great touch because, you know, like we know very little about what has happened, and we've seen the like scrapes and bruises on the front door, but it seems like, oh, like, well, they relit the candles, so like whatever happened, they've like put things back together somewhat.
I can tell these Vulcans are the opposite of my wife because I got in so much trouble a few days ago for doing something I didn't know was a thing, which is prematurely blowing out a candle.
Oh, yeah.
I blew out a candle. I'm like, oh, we're going to go to the next room. Like, we're done out here. I'm going to blow out the candle. I blew out the candle. She's like, what the fuck? You're supposed to let the candle melt all the way out to the rim? I didn't know that.
And you blew it!
Fuck me, right? I'm just walking around blowing out candles.
Oh, man, you really fucking blew it.
Yeah.
Literally.
You blew it!
There is a man standing in the front room there waiting, and T'Pol goes up and has a sotto voce conversation with him, which I don't know if you watched this with the closed captions turned on. I had my TV turned up pretty loud, and like I definitely couldn't hear what they were saying, but there is an entire conversation that is in the closed captions that they have about how like it's the time of Kolinar. Like this is like the one thing that you said was going to be like a no-go. If they're doing Kolinar, we're going to have to turn around and pack it up.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be like one of those lost in translation, like, what do you think What do you think they
think she
said?
said? Yeah.
T'Pol tells the guy, like, I'm going to love you for the rest of my life. I know this is like a weird age thing and a fleeting moment, but like what we did here was special and important.
Frankly, I have a lot to lose if we go back stateside and like the media picks up on the fact that I'm dating somebody this much younger than me. You know, like it'll never play in People magazine. No, she's having this conversation with the guy, and she starts to kind of look around the room, and she notices that they've been paid a visit by Link from The Legend of Zelda, based on how many smashed pieces of pottery are lying around the space. This fucking guy is lying through his Vulcan teeth.
Why are there all these damaged artifacts? And why is there only one person there to greet?
And why is the carpet all wet, Todd?
I don't know, Margot.
I love this moment because it seems like, again, in a very wordless way, there's an agreement that Archer and Tucker have where they're like, okay, let's pretend to be boorish tourists and just kind of like swing our arms around and like talk really loud. And this gives them the cover to explore the space. And in this space, they find a sneaky Andorian kneeling behind a changing partition.
Yeah. He's doing something really sexy back there. Ooh, don't mind me. I'm going to slip into something more comfortable.
This is a place that they have been told not to disturb. Do not wreck anything. But this changing partition basically explodes when two adult men run into a third adult man behind it. It is toothpicks after this.
Yeah.
This is like an A-team explosion. And then the rest of the Andorian buddies are there to make sure that that Archer and Trip don't get the upper hand on this one guy, which is now on the other foot. Like, they turn the tables on him pretty fast.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of Andorians here, and they round up the hostages, and they bring them all into a room, and they're like learning about Earth, you know, as they're doing this. They've never heard of where these guys come from. And they are accusing the Vulcans of having something that is far more than a sanctuary for their religious rites. They believe that they are hiding sensors.
Get ready to spend a lot of time in this room, Ben.
Yeah. This is like the panic room of Star Trek episodes.
It's a good thing that they have so many jars and pots and vases, because what I like about this is you're going to get your own personal toilet. You don't got to share.
No, yeah. It's interesting, like, the energy that Archer and Trip have in that earlier scene where they're like, oh, well, we'll just, like, take a look at the gift shop or whatever, and they're, like, looking at all the artifacts, is so, like, brazen. It's so, like, counter to everything T'Pol has counseled them on. It's so, like, culturally insensitive in a way.
Yeah.
I kind of wonder if this is like why Archer is the captain that the humans selected, because he is like, fuck what everybody's rules are. Like, we need to like go out there and like figure out what our place in the wider galaxy is. And he's so like, it's almost an obtuse thing about him where he like doesn't really care what anybody else thinks. Like he's going to be the first to walk into almost all of these rooms. So he needs to like figure out what kind of space humans can occupy in all of these spaces.
And Archer kind of embodies the relationship between humans and Vulcans at this point.
Just try and stay out of the way and everything will work out fine.
Which I think is crucial for this episode to work at all. Because Tran's whole deal and the Andorians' whole deal is like secret base in the temple. And if humans and Vulcans were tighter than they are in this moment and super close allies, Archer would be like, get the fuck out of here. That is such bullshit. But he doesn't.
He doesn't.
He doesn't ever do that. He's sort of the third to this incident, and he's observing and thinking about it. And
the Vulcans are still scolding him. They're like, you made this so much worse by coming here.
Right.
Like, humans going to space has always been a bad idea, and all Vulcans agree on this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting how this plays out in that way, in that relationship way, especially with how it concludes with the relationship between the Andorians and the humans.
Up on the ship, a McLaughlin group is convened.
Issue 1.
Malcolm Reed has like identified that there's another ship on the surface, and they're starting to like get the sense that like something is going very badly down there. And we smash cut back down to Archer getting punch interrogated, basically.
Anytime you have a chance to have a sequence where you're like, yeah, if I know Archer by now, I know he's doing great diplomacy the way only a great diplomat can do, and then you cut directly to that character getting punched in the face, you gotta do it.
Yeah.
It's television law.
Yeah. You get fucking thrown in jail. Worse than these Vulcans if you don't do that.
He gets the shit kicked out of him. And I know we'll find more out about this later, but do Andorians have super strength the way Vulcans do?
Man, I don't know.
Or they have equivalent hit points for strength? Because, man, the way Archer takes this beating, you hope he's just human strength.
Yeah. He's getting his ass kicked. I think that the loaf on the Andorians is also like really cool and great.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Disco did this with the antennas that are actually like moving around and reacting to things. Like the antennas actually do a little bit of the acting, and like they seem to be beefy enough that they can like throw a guy through a changing partition,
Yeah.
like while he's wearing it.
There's a lot of POV footage also of Archer taking this beating.
Yeah.
And this is a scene where, boy, you hate for this to happen. Like one of the communicators starts chirping. So Shran answers it, and Reed's on the other end, and he's sitting on the big chair on Enterprise. And the message is this: the Dustbuster Club have been taken prisoners. They're the hostages. And if Enterprise interferes, they'll be killed. And then Shran just breaks all the communicators afterward. So there will be no negotiation.
I love the like repeated phone smashing sequence. And are they using the stone of Jakar or whatever to smash the phones?
I love that. Yeah. Yeah, it's a good smashing stone.
Yeah.
Kind of a bad moment for Reed because when he loses communication, he orders a rescue shuttle readied. That's not what Shran told him to do at all.
Yeah. Reed, interesting to watch him be in command of the ship because we really haven't spent much time with him yet. Yeah. And it seems pretty capable, like, but also just like every choice he makes is a bit of a surprise. Like, I guess like we should get out like the first volume of the Encyclopedia Volcanica and see if there's something about Andorians in there.
There are no translucent pages in that encyclopedia. You know, the Vulcan encyclopedia is fucking boring.
Yeah.
Faith of the fart, and you will never take the greatest gin alive. Ben would rather die.
What?
I like what this episode does in not centering the Jeffrey Combs character as the bad guy. You do get a little bit into the henches and
right.
how fucking diabolical they are starting in this scene. Because one of the henches is like, we could really kind of turn up the temperature on the interrogation by starting to cut off some heads. What do you think of that? And Shran turns to Archer and he's like, what do you think? Cut off heads?
Is that something you could live with, Captain?
It's on the table.
Yeah.
The Vulcan hostages start like very insulting when Archer's like, he's like been beaten to a pulp and he gets dragged back into this room and they're like, God, you guys smell.
And not the smell that a person has when they're stressed out or something. Like, this is just the basic human smell. The problem that Archer tells them, I think, is so interesting. He's like, look, I know I'm getting my ass kicked here, but that's actually not the biggest problem. The biggest problem is, even though Malcolm was told not to do a rescue, if I know Malcolm, he's going to do a rescue. And that means if he does, we're all dead.
I didn't recruit my tactical officer to sit on his butt when he's threatened.
So there's kind of a race against time element there.
We need to get in touch with him and tell him not to do that. And the Vulcans are like, well, we do have this spooky Star Trek cave below us. And down in there, there's like a very old piece of equipment that we could use as a transmitter. Who knows if it works, but boop. And there's like an Indiana Jones, like turn the pot on the pedestal and the door opens thing.
the very Pee Wee Herman looking Vulcan is the one who volunteers to go with them. I just could not get over the resemblance. Like the facial structure's there to me. This is the Paul Rubens Vulcan. And together with some torches, he and Trip Tucker make their way through the catacombs.
They just licensed that scene from Pee-wee's Big Adventure where it's just animated eyes creeping through the dark.
Probably just a dog.
I love how they finally get to the transmitter and Trip Tucker's like, he stares at it for a second and he's like, all right, the thing I gotta do before I fix anything that's made from aliens. Oh, yeah. Ooh, yeah.
Would you say that the Scorpion is ready?
He does a lot of drugs before getting to work on this transmitter because he has to. That's his character.
Yeah, he's very curious about this other door that they don't want him to go through, and they tell him that goes down to the reliquary.
Did you know that word before it was said on the show?
I mean, I feel like I've heard it in like temple contexts.
Amazing. I don't think I've ever heard that word before.
Yeah.
I just thought it was neat.
Fun word. There's kind of a long passage of time at it here because like there's some Andorians that come to check on the hostages, but it's like after dark now.
Yeah.
And everybody's like back in the room and they're pretending to sleep. And then the second the Andorians leave, they're like, okay, let's keep fixing on this radio.
Catch a guy in the corner, like taking a night dump. Like trying to take advantage of the privacy, like the private moment that you probably rarely get in a situation like this.
It's so funny because like typically Vulcans are just so unflappable. And the guy's like, oh, come on.
You probably have to hover over a pot that old, right? Because if you sat down on it, you're probably risking breakage.
Well, and you're just also thinking about all the other Vulcan butts that have touched the pot at that point.
Well, I mean, I hypothesize that everyone gets their own pot, given there are so many pots.
Oh, sure.
In this
That's
area.
a bad yes and by me. I retract the comment.
Do you hover because it's probably louder to sit down on it? Like if you're just releasing into a pot, like you're probably doing more like musket work with what's happening.
The plop is going to be louder because you're not like stopping the sound. But here's why I think you hover. Science fiction. You got to hover in science fiction.
That's all that needs to be said.
So
I believe it.
We get a little scene where the Vulcans are like, well, we have one blanket and there's three of you. So we'll offer it to Trip. And Trip is like, I don't need it. Captain, why don't you take it? And Archer's like, well, why don't I be chivalrous and offer it to Paul, who has Vulcan strength and is probably totally comfortable. But then it turns into a like, let's share the blanket. You and me get under it together.
She's like, humans have had a terrible history of giving and sharing blankets over the course of time. You'll forgive me if I don't trust you.
Yeah.
In this exact moment, what the blanket does is it provides an opportunity to talk, which is what T'Pol and Archer do.
Yeah.
When a little bit more of the backstory is revealed in this moment.
You never want to get the sense that somebody that's climbing under a blanket with you is kind of holding their nose while they're doing it, though, right?
That's rough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to do better than that when it's blanket time.
Yeah. He is not sure how they're going to get out of this pickle.
But the relationship between the Vulcans and the Andorians that T'Pol describes is that terrible ignore the bully and he'll get bored and go away kind of thing that I wish I was never told as a kid. Like,
right.
Archer's hearing this and he's like, you're getting atomic wedgies from the Andorians all the time. And guess what? They're not going away. Guess what? They're threatening to cut off heads.
Yeah.
If it comes time to like fight our way out of the locker we're stuffed with, are you going to be down for the cause with me? And T'Pol isn't totally unequivocal here, but it seems like she's going to be down for the cause, right?
Yeah, like the the monks are like very much writing for Vulcans don't respond to violence with violence. But what we learn is that has always been tension between the Andorians and the Vulcans because they're like pretty close in the neighborhood. And there's a treaty that governs this tension, but there's a lot of Andorians that are kind of belligerent and acting somewhat outside the terms of the treaty. And yeah, like Archer is pretty outraged by this. He's like, you're just going to let them like rub your nose in the dirt and give you swirlies and stuff. And I mean, you're all walking around with kick me signs taped to your back. Like, have some fucking dignity.
Yeah.
And he even says, you people.
What do you mean, you people?
Back on Enterprise, they get a transmission from that repaired transmitter, and Trip's like, Reed? Is this Reed? Hey, Reed! Hey! Hey, man! Whoa!
Have I ever told you that I fucking love you, man?
Reed, I'm so happy for you being the commander while we're away. I knew you'd be good at that.
I know we're not always going to work on this ship, but I hope we're always friends, man. Maybe someday we can host karaoke at some kind of convention. Anyways.
Reed is not chill. Reed is doing that thing where he's yelling when he's the one that can barely hear the person on the other line. I kind of wish someone directed Reed to dial it down a bit. But I feel like this is also television law. Like, this is how it goes. If you're having a technical problem, both people must yell.
True enough.
Yell to sell.
There's some interesting like dilemma in the like various things they consider about how to like fight back against the Andorians. Like, I don't know, like beam a bunch of security guys into the atrium or beam them into this room and then like fight our way out. And Reed needs to be called off on all of these potential plans.
We'd ask you to shoot a photon torpedo down here, Reed, but you're not exactly shooting straight. Based on previous events. Like the one takeaway that Trip's trying to get Reed to understand is, look, do not launch the rescue mission. You got to put that off. Like, don't attack just yet. No one's saying no. We're just saying not right now.
Give us some time to deal with this situation.
'Cause we really think it's fair use.
The Vulcans like continuously reinforce that they do not want anyone going down into the reliquary, and that started to be a little bit suspicious at this point.
It sucks when you're making the escape route out with the communion wafers and the Vulcans keep on like sweeping the ones away, having to go into the reliquary.
Yeah. They're like, not these ones. Pretend these aren't here.
They keep eating them instead of...
They're like, they don't taste good. What are you guys doing?
I mean, as poorly as things are going in the monastery, like the Andorians aren't doing that much better. They're starting to feel frustrated by the fact that they haven't found the secret base they've been looking for, and they're starting to get impatient, and that one guy still really wants to cut off some heads. And suddenly, they hear yelling from the hostages, and when they go in there to check on it, Archer tells Shran that he's got some new information, and they need to talk. And Shran hears this, and he's like, whoa. I mean, I didn't think things... Are we okay?
Yeah.
Like, I'm kind of nervous when you put it that way.
I love that Archer goes out to the atrium area and bullshits his way through the information I have for you, or just some like light observations I have about the whole situation, and gets his ass kicked again just so that he can get close enough to the like statue mouth in the atrium to drop a little army man down the hole.
This is as likable as I've ever found Archer.
Absolutely.
And I think the reason is this moment, he's just vomiting dialogue here that doesn't go anywhere. What it reminded me of was one of my favorite Chris Farley sketches from SNL. Do you remember? I think he only did this once, where he was on the update desk as a guy who has a story to tell, but can't get past the part where he's like, And then I says, and then I says, and then what I say is, and you're not going to believe this. And what I say, I look him straight in the eye. And what I say is, and he does this for like 90 seconds. And it's a total magic trick how he could make nothing that funny.
Yeah.
And this is what Archer's doing in this scene. He's saying nothing for such a long amount of time and also getting the shit kicked out of him during.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I've learned really a lot since I got here.
So Trip finds the action figure that he ditched down the statue mouth, and that is like the confirmation that they need to know that the like space under they can beam the rescue team into the tunnels below the atrium without the Andorians like being onto them immediately. So the rescue team gets ready to beam down, and there's like, you know, a beat of like, are we sure we want to do this? Is it just going to be like meat slop that materializes on the other side?
Have you ever seen two crew people more dead than the dead meat standing next to Reed on this transporter pad? I mean, you know, I'm a gambling man.
Tin Man.
I would have bet anything that one or both of these guys would die in the process.
Yeah.
Imagine my surprise when Hoshi beams them down and they arrive.
I do want them to have a couple of transporter accidents that are just totally fucking horrific. Like, not silly Tuvix's or Thomas Riker's, but like bone sticking through flesh, like kill me. I'm begging you to kill me kind of transporter accidents.
Yeah, show us some cloned Ripleys.
Like, I want it to be as horrific as the transporter accident in Spaceballs.
Why didn't somebody tell me my ass was so big?
Yeah, give us that.
So Reed hides behind this big mask thing in the atrium and is like fixing up a bomb back there as the Andorians read out on their sensors and realize that they're not alone. And there's a great big explosion from the mask and a very exciting and dynamic firefight with a lot of running around and a lot of, you know, guys getting tagged. And two of the Andorians get away into the catacombs. They jump down through that mask, and the Starfleets are getting ready to chase them. The Vulcan monks are fucking pissed that this has gone this way. This is like exactly the opposite of everything T'Pol told Archer before they went down here.
I love the energy of the Pee-wee Vulcan. This is like the second time in a couple episodes I've thought of Scrooge, but he reminds me of the Lee Majors character playing Santa Claus when the North Pole gets sieged. He's like, this is one Vulcan that's going through the catacombs, and he like racks a shotgun, like ready to go in with the humans. It's great.
And Lee, you're being a real good boy this year.
He's ready.
Yeah.
It sort of seemed like he was down there to hall monitor Archer, though. Again, like sort of like T'Pol has been this entire time. Like there's sacred relics, which just seems to be like ceramic horses and tapestries and stuff down there.
Let me ask you something. Were you disappointed with what we saw in the reliquary? Before the rolly door opens, I mean.
I've been to a lot of like garden decoration stores in Pasadena, so I've seen all of this stuff before, and in that sense it's disappointing.
I know.
But I also know how expensive garden decoration store in Pasadena can be, so I know that this was like kind of a pretty penny worth of stuff.
Have you ever tried to buy a hanging tapestry? Gotta do that in installments.
Yeah, well, it gets shot down in installments, and it turns out there's a great big vault door down in the reliquary. And this kind of stops the firefight because Archer's like, holy shit, you guys got to come check this out.
Yeah, we get a lot of react before we ever see through the hole.
Yeah.
And I was a little bit bumped why everyone inside the secret base didn't pay anyone any mind.
They don't seem to care that there are, it's bring your Andorian to work day.
I feel like I've played this video game before. Like I go through the door and all of a sudden the alarm goes off.
Right. Yeah.
And shit goes down.
There's a weird programming glitch that the NPCs haven't gone into attack the invader mode.
Right.
And T'Pol is ordered to use her scanning device to get a scan of this giant complex. Like there's a huge like siloed complex underground full of Vulcans, and they give this scanning device to Shran so he can take the scan and jam like Shran, the man.
I love the energy of this scene, don't you? Because it all has to do with that relationship which is now a triangle, right?
Mm-hmm,
the relationship between the humans and the Vulcans and the Andorians and the Andorians and the humans. And what Archer does here, because this is first contact for the humans and the Andorians, he gives all of that data to the Andorians and he's like, what's up? First contact, baby.
Yeah. And the Andorians are like, it's so interesting because like I feel like he has like different D&D character alignments depending on which alien he's hanging out with. Like if he's around a Vulcan, chaotic good. If he's around an Andorian, lawful good. And they're like, who is this guy? What's his deal?
Good call. I like T'Pol here too, who I think reads the room correctly. Like, oh shit, because she was lied to too, remember? Like, I don't think there's any way she knew this thing was there.
Right. This is a huge violation of this treaty that we have learned about between the Vulcans and the Andorians. And Archer wants the Andorian, like he feels like it is only just that the Andorians know about this situation.
He is orthodox treaty.
Yeah.
There's nothing that pisses him off more than someone breaking a treaty. That and a fucking water polo foul. Fuck that. Fuck both of those.
Yeah, to the extent that she can express herself, I would say that T'Pol seems pretty disgusted by this revelation as well.
Shran looking at Archer's completely mangled face, a face that's been mangled on his fists. The best he can do on his way out the door after being given the intelligence and being permitted to whoop that ass is, we're in your debt. I love that there's no apology here as like an Andorian thing. Like, they're out. Yeah. And this episode ends pretty abruptly because after that, the shuttle pod leaves with the Dustbuster Club, and that's the end of the episode.
That's it.
Yeah.
Did you like the episode?
I'm going to ask you a question after getting asked that question, which is...
You can speak to us normally.
Did you want a little denouement at the end of like back on the ship, there being a moment where they could process this? Or are you cool with cut to credits?
I will say that in the very small number of episodes of this series that we have seen, there have been so many episodes that end with the like, we're hanging out at the captain's table again and we're talking about what we learned today.
That was my expectation.
I kind of liked that they are showing that they are not super married to that as like a format, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And I liked that we're left with the surprise in our teeth and not like the surprising choice that Archer makes at the end of this is the last thing we have to chew on.
Well, I'm curious how serialized we're going to become throughout this series and throughout this season, because I really am curious about the fallout from this.
Yeah.
And how people feel about how this mission ended specifically, because we don't know these characters well enough to make assumptions there.
Yeah. Like, does it shake T'Pol? Does it like make it more spicy when they run into other Vulcans? There's a lot of uncertainty that will proceed from this moment.
Let me ask you another question that I had when I think about whether or not I like this episode. Does this story make you feel something better or worse if it's the Andorians beating up the Vulcans instead of the humans?
Interesting.
If you're watching stoic Vulcans get the shit kicked out of them, is that something that affects you more as a viewer in a way that makes you feel something? Because I think it would. It seems like Archer's almost having fun getting the shit kicked out of him. Like it changes the stakes. Whether or not the Vulcans are guilty of the thing that Andorians accuse them of and hiding this base, I think is made more interesting if they're willing to take the beating over it.
Right.
In hiding it.
Yeah.
I wonder if they ever thought about that.
I mean, it's not clear to me that all of the Vulcans even know about this. Like, Pee-wee Vulcan definitely does. Like, it seems like he went down there to try and forestall the discovery of this, but wound up having a bit of a glass jaw.
What you got to do is wrap a length of chain link around that door. That way, no one's going to get in there. What about you, Ben? Did you like it?
I really like this episode. I mean, I agree that like there is something so great about the way Jeffrey Combs like walks into this episode, but then isn't overused by this episode. Like, he's such an electric actor and has such a great Star Trek pedigree at this point.
You know what's interesting about how they use him and how Roxann Dawson specifically puts him into frame is that he's so often in profile or looking at Archer. He's never really like the star of a scene in a way that like is facing you directly. They kind of take away his star power a little bit in shot composition. Yeah,
and that's so head fainted in the cold open that I thought it was a really cool introduction to the Andorians as a concern on this show and him as a character.
Yeah.
And I thought this was a terrific episode.
Right on. Enjoying Enterprise so far.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Do you want to see if there's anything you enjoy reading about in the Priority One inbox, Adam?
Oh, what are the chances?
Slim to none.
Priority One message from Starfleet coming in on secured channel.
Need a supplemental income.
Supplemental income?
Supplemental.
Supplemental.
Yeah, it's extra.
The interest alone could be enough to buy this ship.
Ben, we got a Priority One message here of a promotional nature. That message goes like this. Starbase Indy is your Midwest home for all things Star Trek. Our annual Geek Family Thanksgiving tradition gathers actors, writers, scientists, fans, friends of DeSoto, and anyone interested in Star Trek's vision of a hopeful future for a weekend of connection, conversation, and celebration. Come meet our celebrity guests, engage in spirited conversation with other Trek enthusiasts, hang out with scientists, and support small businesses in our geeky vendor room. So visit starbaseindy.org to learn more. That's Starbase Indy in Indianapolis.
I love this.
About that.
I want to go to Starbase Indy. That sounds fun as hell.
So yeah, Starbase Indy is from November 29th to December 1st. A whole bunch of information is over there on starbaseindy.org, including hotel and badge information.
They've been doing this for 35 years. Amazing.
35 years. Lordy. Now we got a lot of FODs in the Midwest.
Oh, yeah.
Should pay this place a visit.
Yeah, we really should. Well, thanks for getting a P1 Starbase Indy. Our next P1 is from your Earth companion, Allison, and it is to my personal resident alien, Sam. It goes like this. Our great adventure started in 2016, just like the Greatest Generation podcast. Thanks to you, I've been enjoying Adam and Ben's hilarious banter with you ever since. What better place to wish you a happy birthday than in a P1 from the gentleman whose podcasts have been around as long as our union. You are the Riker to my Troy. Happy birthday.
Wow, what a compliment.
Hell yeah. Good job being the kind of resident alien that doesn't try to destroy all humans, Sam.
That's a reference I get from context clues.
Thanks to everyone who got a P1 on today's episode. It's MaximumFun.org/Jumbotron if you'd like to get one for yourself, and we sure appreciate it.
Because they go a long way to supporting the production of our show.
Hey, Adam.
What's that, Ben?
Did you find yourself a drunk Shimoda?
Incredible.
Drunk Shimoda!
I'm shocked to say this. I was wondering if I'd ever get to. My favorite character and the drunk Shimoda for this episode for me, Captain Archer.
Wow.
Captain Archer became Rocky Balboa this episode. Rocky famously beat his opponents by absorbing their punishment, tiring them out, and then getting the upper hand. A guy can take a punch. Sure and a guy used it as a strategy. I thought it was great, and it made me really like him. You know, like part of being a great captain is being the person who takes the punch, both figuratively and realistically, you know, for your crew. And I think it's notable that he's in there getting the shit kicked out of him while guys like Trip inject drugs and work on communications transmitters somewhere else, you know? So good job by him. So Archer's my Shimoda. What about you?
Gonna give it to Pee Wee Vulcan. I loved the
to Paul Rubens. Can we call him that?
Wow. There you go. He is such an interesting character to me because it seems like he really shocked and dismayed the monk elder that is running this temple. And I love that you're kind of left not knowing, like, is he like an agent that is like embedded with the monks, or do all the monks know? Or was he like was he a monk and like only knew a little bit, but was also kind of like the young kind of dude that wants to like fight to solve the problem in a way that the elders were like, no, that is not the way, you know?
You know, speaking of epilogues to the story that we don't get, I mean, imagine what his life is like in the aftermath after that shuttle takes off. Like,
he's cleaning out a lot of shat in pots after this experience.
But he's doing a lot of demonstrative cleaning, like that kind of passive aggressive cleanup that's like, look at me. I'm doing all the work here. I'm a good Vulcan, right?
I'm a team player.
Can't be mad at me. No way. I wonder if we'll ever see him again or be back to this place.
Why do I feel like I just got subtweeted?
Not at all, Ben.
Face of the fart.
Why don't you tell us about the next episode we're going to watch for next week, and I'll go over to the Game of Buttholes, the Will of the Riker, Quantum Leap.
Well, the next episode is Season 1, Episode 8, Breaking the Ice. While the Enterprise crew researches a newly discovered comet, Archer tries to deal diplomatically with a Vulcan ship that is suspiciously watching them.
I mean, what would it have to do to be suspicious about it? I think that's a pretty low bar to clear.
Yeah, sure is. How are we going to be watching this episode, Adam?
Well, I'm about to tell you. We'll only find out after rolling this 100-sided die. That is the die that will randomly place us somewhere on this game board. So many fun ways to watch an ep, including one that we skipped this time around because we were supposed to do a temporal Cold War activity for our Marin. That has been vetoed. Instead, we're going to put a Quantum Leap episode into the bonus feed. And I'm here to roll that bone, that 100-sided bone.
You're required to learn as you play. Roll.
The sort of bone that belongs in the radicome. What was the
the reliquary / catacomb. The radicome.
You know what? I'm just trying to like better the process for the Vulcans, you know? Like, let's keep it sharp and tight. Cool, like the kids say.
Yeah.
Here we go. Ben, I've landed us on square 83.
Chula!
Did I win?
Hardly.
That's a regular old episode. We're on the doorstep of a special square, but we didn't hit it directly. It's going to be just the usual way for you and me. How about that?
Right. Tremendous.
Yeah.
That's all I want.
Nothing to veto there.
Well, thanks to everyone who gave us a listen this week and everyone that supports us at MaximumFun.org/join. New Quantum Leap episode headed to your bonus feed if you do support because of my veto last week. Got to thank Wynde Priddy, the producer and editor of this program, and Rob Adler, who runs all of our social media accounts. Give us a follow at Greatest Trek on all social media. They are more and more fun every day to follow these accounts.
You know what I like about what's going on at our social media pages is that it's not just like clips of the show. They're like new bits of business, new content, new funny things.
Yeah.
Going up in those places all the time.
And we're also doing a monthly newsletter. I think a new one should be coming out right about the time of this episode. So if you're not already signed up, get yourself signed up. I think you can sign up at podshop.biz or at gach.biz/mail. there's news you can use about our show and what Adam and I are up to in there.
Hey, you know what's an idea that I just thought of? Maybe we put a little coupon in there for the Pod Shop.
Podshop.biz?
Oh, snap.
How about that? Subscribe to the newsletter, get a little coupon
Hell yeah.
for getting yourself something nice from the podshop.biz.
I think that's a capital idea, Adam. Write it down because we will forget otherwise.
Radicome. The code will be Radicome. Oh shit, I gave it away.
God damn it.
We'll come up with a different one.
Yeah, it's going to be a different one. Thanks to Bill Tilley, our temporal Cold War time consigliere. Oh, and thanks to Adam Ragusea, who has been making great music for us for years.
Yep.
And Dark Materia, who made the original Picard song. With that, we will be back at you next week with another great episode of Star Trek Enterprise and an episode of The Greatest Generation Enterprise where Archer finally gets comfortable talking to Vulcans.
I can't imagine.
Make it so.
You know what I like about You know what I like? This is why she's never going to get the part. She's off her only bin.
Maximum Fun.
A worker-owned network
Of artist-owned shows.
supported
directly
by you.